All right, real talk. How far are you driving to save money on gas? If it's 5 cents or 20 cents or 25 cents. Well, Costco gas station is, one, there were two gas stations that were potentially contaminated with diesel fuel in Fort Collins. The Safeway off of Drake and Taft Hill. And then rumors spread online that it could have been the Costco in Timnath. Thank goodness I don't go to either of those. Now, my wife used to go, she would definitely go to the more cost-friendly gas stations. And, when you're looking at like 10 cents a gallon or 15 cents a gallon, you can definitely save a couple of bucks depending on the size of your fuel tank. Most fuel tanks are about 15 to 20 gallons depending. So, on a 20-cent savings, you could save $4 if you had a 20-gallon fuel tank and had to fill it all the way up. So I'm definitely curious, how far are you driving to save money on gas? Clearly, there's a lot of people. I mean, if it's en route, yeah, and I've got the option and I can stop here and fill up at Costco or, fill up tomorrow. And, if I can save the dollars, sure, if it makes sense. But even still, Costco is considering doubling the size of its gas fuel station from, let's see here, 16 to 32 fuel stations potentially by the end of this year. Because we go to Costco all the time for our shopping, grocery, and we drive by there, and there's definitely always a line. I mean, not always, but a majority of the time there is a line, and I'm just not personally going to wait in that line. If opportunistically, I'm driving by, no line, I'm going to hit it up, save those, $2 to $4 on gas, because I do have a truck. So I think my truck to fill up's like, gosh, what is it? I think like 22, 23 gallons, something like that. It's a big truck, and it definitely would be worth saving on that side of things every now and again. But that being said, Timnath that Ladera project is blowing up. This year, we're going to really start to see it take shape. Connell Resources, they are stopping production there. So you're going to kind of see that area just stop on the Connell Resources side, asphalt, concrete, all that kind of stuff, and start to really be built out from Kechter to Harmony Road, Whitesell Road to I-25. I mean, it's definitely a pretty exciting thing for I-25 and Harmony Road. This last week, the city council, new mayor, Emily Francis, took her seat, as well as a new pro-tem, Julie Pignataro. So congratulations to both of them. 3 new council members took their seats. District 1, Chris Conway. District 3, which is my district, Josh Fudge. And then in District 5, Amy Hoven. And then it was really interesting. In District 6, Emily Francis was the sitting council member, and she actually had 2 years left on her term. City council members served for a 4-year term in Fort Collins, and she was elected the new mayor. And so there was a vacated seat. And the way that they did this was you had to submit your applications. I want to say like 15 people actually submitted applications for that seat, and as well as like supporting documentation. And then they cut it down to 5 individuals that they had a special session that they interviewed, each person getting 30 minutes and discussing what they felt like were the issues that, posed a risk to Fort Collins, District 6 specifically. And it was really interesting, to listen to all 5 of them, give their viewpoints. And I would say one thing that I will say I'm super excited about is, 15 people saying that they were interested in taking that vacated seat. Now, granted, maybe that's more appealing than, putting your hat in the ring and having, 2 different candidates go, or 3 or 4 different candidates go, and having a campaign, spend the money, all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit lesser of an obstacle to become a city council member when it's a vacated seat versus, campaigning for a new seat or for that seat. But everyone was asked the same questions. They had an opening statement that was 3 minutes. Then they had, the same 3 to 5 questions, and then a closing statement. Everyone discussed about how housing affordability is, the number one problem facing Fort Collins. One member even went as far as saying we have 1,000 affordable units under what we should be. And if you take into consideration each unit is roughly $500,000 to build, we're at $500 million shortfall. And obviously, you don't eat an elephant, one bite. You just eat it one bite at a time. So hopefully they can see that. Of course, we want to provide good, safe, clean, affordable housing in Fort Collins. There are a lot of people, waiters, waitresses, retail managers, retail workers, teachers, that with living in Fort Collins, such a desirable place to live, the cost of living and a big component of that is housing, can be burdensome. So definitely need to make sure that we keep that in the forefront of our minds while maintaining. The reason why Fort Collins has gotten so expensive is because it's so wonderful and there's so many amenities and exciting things and things that we're working on. So hopefully that the city council, yes, attack this head on, but make sure that this doesn't take over everything. It is not something that I think should take money from the Southeast Community Center, which it already did, honestly. And that's where I think I have a little bit of a frustration is, I've quoted it a couple of times. Kelly Olson said, you want to help the affordability of Fort Collins, remove the 300 days of sun, remove the banana belt, temperatures and climate that we have here, the mountains that we live next to, wonderful, weather that we have. Remove all that and all of the last 100 years of wonderful city planning, then we'll have a more affordable place to live because it won't be as desirable. So I hope that we attack the affordable housing while maintaining. There are still a lot of community capital improvements that we're wanting to do. The pickleball courts that we're wanting to build for $4 million in Southeast Colorado that, were passed by that community capital improvement project. The 2050 sales tax, 1,000 acres of parks in Fort Collins that need to be maintained, well-maintained, upkept. So I just don't want to be taking from different things, because right now I think it's a very important thing that we just consider. It was the main topic of consideration for all 5 candidates. And ultimately, Emily Francis was really the one that was looked to because it was her district from all of the other council members, like saying, hey, pretty much whatever you think, we're going to go with. And she felt like the person who was best suited was Ann Nelson, who is an architect and an affordable housing advocate who's been through the building process. And again, I think there are tools outside of, just building new affordable housing units that we could work on as far as, the building review process. Cut it down from 36 months to 12 months, reduce fees, figure out how we can offset those fees. But I think there are strategies. So I'm excited to see what Ann Nelson does in District 6, as well as the new council members and city mayor. Talked about it a little bit last week, but it's called the missing tooth. I didn't realize that. But 160 West Mountain Avenue. I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you. Oops. This screen. This is what's going to be built. It's going to be 16,000 square feet. And this has been really pretty much kind of a dilapidated building. This right here, let's see if you can see it. No, sorry. This right here in the back is the Rio. This is Mountain Avenue. They're going to remove some parking in the back and replace it with some patio seating. There will be an anchor retail restaurant there. Vuelo, who is a local developer, they've already started the interior renovations. So super excited to see that. It's going to be right along the Max Transit, so should be easy to access, quickly to get to. That's actually a Max Transit station right there, just north of Mountain Avenue. So excited to see that kind of come in to play. Now, hey, one thing, this channel is starting to pick up a little bit. I was joking with my wife that like, hey, it's depressing. You build a channel, you built it for the last 6 years, and there's a few thousand subscribers, and I would get, a relatively good watch time on the live, but there was some, strategy behind starting a different channel for the lives, podcasts, kind of things to do in Fort Collins channel. But we're starting to get a little bit more people, and we've got a few people watching here. So if you have any questions, ask them now. Otherwise, leave a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you and answer that then. The Exchange. I will say this was also a local development by, I don't know who by, but this was shipping containers that were transformed into restaurants, retail. There's barbershops, and then there is the churn in the middle. with a large kind of patio. I will say one spot, and he was considering taking location within the square, which clearly I wish he would have, because he is an extremely active business developer, always putting on events. And this is Old Town Putt, by the way, at the Exchange. If you haven't been there, go check it out. It's a putt course, but he's also always doing random events and different things and games and things of that nature. So it's a super cool opportunity that he has built for himself. But the Exchange itself, between triple nets, which if you have a question on what triple nets are, feel free to ask. In fact, I'm meeting with a client on a residential side who is looking at making an investment on a commercial opportunity, but has never done that. And so wanted to ask questions. Now, I don't really do too much brokerage on the commercial side. I will on the one-off situations, but I am happy to answer questions and be a resource. Between triple nets, rent escalations, higher base rents, I think the Exchange has been really challenging for tenants to stay, because there is a few that are turning over this year. A boba shop, Thai street food, as well as a new Bounce salon taking up residence in the Exchange. January 27th through the 29th. So really next week, it'll be on my Things to Do newsletter if you are on that newsletter and reading it. But there is going to be the Colorado Farm Show returning to the Island Grove Regional Park in Weld County, kind of northeast Greeley. They're expecting 30,000 attendees with 350 exhibits, $5 per vehicle for parking. And these are going to help scholarship for students pursuing ag-related degrees. Weld County, very strong ag-based economy, business, and it's still a big part of Colorado and Weld County specifically. Aldi is coming to Colorado, but not yet to Fort Collins. In fact, they were considering coming to Fort Collins at the old Joanne's shop. There was some development review plans that were submitted, ended up not happening. They're looking to bring a distribution center to Colorado and open up, I think it's 50 shops in Colorado. Yeah, 50 stores in Colorado. Not anything in Fort Collins yet, but apparently it's a very desirable shopping center, affordable as well. So that would be good to see. Colorado Springs, Denver, Aurora, but not yet in Fort Collins. I did see a question, so I'm going to answer that real quick. Let's see here. Speaking of affordable housing, how do we see the increased prevalence of metro districts taxes impacting affordability? If I'm understanding your question, there's not a ton of metro districts actually in Fort Collins. There's only a handful. Bloom, I'm sure Montava is going to be. There's not many because they actually, and then the lakes at Strauss Cabin or Strauss Development, lakes at Strauss are going to be developed and will have a metro district there. But most of the metro districts are kind of in our surrounding areas, Windsor, Timnath. I'm going out there today. Comparatively to Fort Collins, the affordability, if you're looking at metro districts, in Fort Collins, the property taxes are about 0.55 to 0.65% of the property value. And the project at Bloom that we're going to go look at right now, the total property taxes are about 0.95% of the property value, but those could go all the way up to 1.1%. So, you're adding an additional 50% for property taxes. You do get a lot of amenities, but this is to repay the infrastructure that was built. Ran some numbers of comparable homes in metro districts and comes out to 40 to 50K in buying power versus no metro districts. Absolutely. You do get the benefit of a more affordable house. You just have a little bit higher property taxes. But if those houses didn't have a metro district or, were in Fort Collins, they would be a lot more expensive of a house, depending on obviously the price point. So, 40 to 50K percentage wise, depending on where we're at, that could probably be about 5 to 10%. I don't have any direct numbers, but yes, there is a benefit on the purchase price of buying in a metro district, but you do have a higher property tax that comes on an annual basis. Let's see here. Enrollment, we talked about this last week, but enrollment declined across the entire state of Colorado, about 11,500 students. This is declining birth rates, net migration, which we're going to talk about net migration next week. The city council work session is going deep on migration and demographic numbers this week, today, actually. So I'll be excited to watch that and report back on that next week. But, Poudre School District, a lot of aging in place is happening. Not as many young families and not a lot of young families not having as many kids. So there's going to be some consolidation, school boundaries over the next year. Nothing in Poudre School District until 2027. It's assumed at this point, but I'm guessing there will be some changes that happen across the state and not and including Poudre School District. Some things to do this week. Speaking of Old Town Putt, there's two different things that you could do there. The Winter 2026 Putters and Pints Mini Golf League, starting January 21st, 7 to 9 p.m. The Winter 2026 Bar Games League, January 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m. Like I said, these are pretty cool. These are things that he's putting out there, marketing. I'm seeing it amongst other people. So, good on him. I can't remember his name. He was considering it. It's like Sydney or something like that. But anyways, Northern Colorado Home Show. Go check that out. What's going on? A lot of different demonstrations, expert advice, exclusive offers, for renovation projects. One of our clients who opened up a franchise here in Fort Collins for like bathrooms and kitchens, he'll be putting something on, or he has put something on the end. That is the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, starting at 12 p.m. at the Arena Circle in Loveland. I think that's kind of the ranch complex, sports complex. Polar Bear Plunge. I'm not sure if my wife is watching this or not. And if she is, I'm definitely not interested, so don't ask. January 24th, 10 a.m. Oh, I think she might be working. Thank goodness. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at South Swim Beach in Fort Collins. Let's see here. Pickleball Learn and Play fundraiser, January 24th, 4:30 to 8:30 at The Pickler at Jessup Farm. And then downtown Loveland's 5th annual Mac and Cheese Melt-Off, January 22nd. So on Thursday. And this will be 6 to 9 p.m. at multiple locations downtown Loveland. I'm a big fan of mac and cheese, but I do gotta not eat too much going on right now. 2026 Preschool Summer Camp and Kids Activities Fair, January 24th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Fort Collins Senior Center if you're looking to get your kids into preschool or sign them up for some type of summer activity. And then, as always, Winter's Farmers Market. We had a client that moved here from Houston and opened up she's doing some soap sales as well as kind of like an artisan type crafts at the farmer's market. So go visit her shop and buy some soap. Ran a little bit over 15 minutes. I will do a little bit more research on, the purchase price. We've looked at the cost of living, 0.95 to 1.1% of the home value for metro districts on an annual property tax versus 0.55 to 0.65% of the property value. And then as comparable home sales, you are going to get a discount buying in those because you're generally buying in an area that's a little bit on the outskirts, in addition to that, the biggest thing though, your increased property taxes, but you will have a little bit of reduction in property value, which we could look at like what that looks like as far as, if you were $50,000 higher and had a 0.55% sales property tax versus $50,000 higher, but a 1.05% property tax. We could do some of those that math, but appreciate your questions and watching. Until next time, everybody, have a great day. Take care.